It's very likely that expansion will occur in Major League Baseball in the next few years, and also a strong possibility of relocation for a couple teams. And there's a lot of speculation as to what cities could possibly get an MLB franchise when that happens. One thing I can say for sure is that the next round of expansion and relocation will certainly be awarded to cities in the United States and Canada. But what about the round after that? In 10, 15, or 20 years, the idea of international expansion becomes more realistic. So here I've put together a list of the top 5 cities that I think could one day have a Major League franchise. At number 5 we have London, or any other city in Europe. With London hosting an MLB series for the first time this year, the idea will inevitably be floated around, and any further discussion about it will mostly depend on how well baseball is embraced there in June. What would make this a good idea? Well, London is about the same size as New York, so there's enough population to support it. And out of that population, there are plenty who can afford the tickets, since the UK is a rich country with several other rich countries just a short flight away. And now, what would make this a bad idea? Let's start with the obvious one: distance. Yes, air travel times have improved a lot over the years, but not nearly enough. Boston and New York were chosen for the London series in part because they are the nearest cities to the UK, but even those two cities are about a 7-hour flight away. So even if you put a London team in a division with all East Coast teams, the travel time would no doubt cause added fatigue to players when they play in London, and upon their return. You could give each team a day off before and after playing over there, but then the season would extend far into the winter, creating yet another problem. Also, there's a reason the NFL hasn't put a team there, even though travel time is not as big a deal with them. London is an event city, which is why the big pro sports leagues from North America can hold sellout games there. But when it comes to supporting a team on a regular basis, they prefer their own sports. So, look forward to baseball in London this summer, but don't expect a team there permanently anytime soon. Number 4. Santo Domingo. 3 million people live there, and just about all of the Dominican Republic's 10 million plus residents live within a few hours of the capital. Distance would not be a problem, with South Florida just a couple hours away by air. As far as enthusiasm for the game, you may not find another place on earth where baseball is bigger. But, unfortunately, enthusiasm doesn't pay the admission price. With a GDP per capita of around 8,000, few people would be able to go to the games and support the team financially. They would also need a new stadium, since the city's present stadiums are nowhere near Major League capacity. But, just because it's not a good idea today, doesn't mean we have to rule out tomorrow. The Dominican Republic's economy has been growing 7% annually in recent years, making it the fastest growing economy in the Western Hemisphere. If that continues and incomes rise along with GDP, this could really happen one day. Coming in at number 3, San Juan, Puerto Rico. Many would argue that this is not an international city because Puerto Rico is a US territory, but I figure if they compete as a foreign country, we'll count them as one. A lot of things make San Juan a good candidate. Most importantly, it's already been tested out and shown that it works. San Juan has hosted 51 Major League games since 2001, the last time being last year, and it's always a sellout. Sure, their stadium has a smaller capacity than any present Major League stadium, but if they fill the seats every night, they can still top 6 of last year's MLB teams in attendance. Travel between the island and the mainland is passport-free, and travel times are reasonable. So why hasn't this been done yet? Population is one drawback. 3 million people on the island is a good number to draw fans from, but there is no surrounding area to grow the fan base. If Puerto Rico had a Major League franchise, it would have the smallest population of any state or territory to have one. A population boom would help their cause, but in recent years it's gone in the opposite direction. No team wants to move into a shrinking market. Violent crime is another negative. According to the most recent data, San Juan's homicide rate is higher than all but 2 US cities. Number 2, Mexico City. This city has quite a few advantages. First and foremost is the population. With over 20 million people in the greater Mexico City area, it would be MLB's largest market. And unlike in London, the league wouldn't have to worry about developing an interest in the sport, since baseball is already a well-known sport in Mexico. Distance is not a problem either. 10 out of the 30 MLB teams are less than 4 hours by plane from Mexico's capital. And now for the downside. One problem is money. It would not only be MLB's biggest market, but also the poorest. Mexico City does have some wealthy residents, but they are far outnumbered by the poor. Another issue is safety. though one could argue that Mexico City has a lower crime index than Detroit. That may be true, but it's important to remember that Detroit wasn't so dangerous when the Tigers first appeared there. It's one thing to maintain a ball club in a city once it becomes dangerous. It's another thing to start off in a city that's already dangerous. One final obstacle would be competition from soccer. Professional soccer is far more popular, and it's played pretty much all year round. So while MLB in the US and Canada benefit from having the summer all to itself, MLB in Mexico would have no such advantage. Before I get to number 1, I'd like to share a few others that did not make the top 5. Of course, I had to consider Tokyo, Osaka, Seoul, Busan, and Taipei, making up their own Far East division. Those cities are rich, populous, safe, they love baseball, and they already have big modern stadiums, but the distance is too much to overcome. Even if future advancements in air travel greatly exceed our expectations, these cities will still be too far away from the rest of the league. Havana is nearby, but in addition to all the same problems I previously mentioned with other Caribbean cities, there is also ongoing friction between the US and Cuban governments. Caracas has all the same problems as Havana, plus distance would be a problem. A united Central American team would be interesting. It's fun to imagine Panama City, Managua, and maybe San Jose hosting home games for a single team, but all countries in the area need a lot more development before it could be seriously considered. And the number 1 city for Major League international expansion has to be Monterrey. Yes, you don't need to travel too far to find an international city. Monterrey is so close to the border it's practically in the United States. It's not as big as Mexico City, but it's still a very large market. And it has a few advantages over Mexico's capital. One of them is safety. Monterrey is the safest city in Mexico. It's also the richest city, so plenty of the city's residents can afford to go see a game. This was already proven last year when a 3-game series was played between the Dodgers and Padres in front of 3 sellout crowds of 27,000. And the city has a history of strong support for its local baseball team, so it's likely that they would continue to turn out in large numbers to see Major League Ball. What's stopping this expansion? The only thing holding them back is the same problem cities north of the border deal with: stadiums. Sure, 27,000 is a decent-sized crowd, just a little below the league average, but MLB wants to move into a market that's going to raise its average, not lower it. And you have to assume that at some point they would host the All-Star Game and the World Series, where anything less than 35,000 is unacceptable. So what's your top 5? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video and want to see more like it, hit that subscribe button. This is Baseball International, and I'll see you in the next video.